right now, on the line from Switzerland, we have the very gorgeous BillyBoy. BillyBoy, you've got a book you're going to be reviewing for us this week that you sent me a copy of. Very interesting book. Absolutely.
I'm very enthusiastic about this author who is also a friend of mine. I'm a really staunch supporter of his work because I think he's an exceptional author. And in fact, I think that he's one of the great old school authors, even though he's quite young. He's 33. And he's a lot like Brett Gleason, whom you had on your show recently. The same sort of comes from the same base of feelings. He's a gay man, and he's very politically active, and he was one of the first people for Occupy Wall Street, and he's also, was supporting Pussy Riot and was a support, he loves like Noam Chomsky. He's a very old school kind of author, even though he's so young. And I think this is unusual because a lot of authors these days who are that young or even younger, they're so completely about autofiction that they don't take the time to learn how to write. And his name is Remy Shamir. And he's Russian Jewish origins. He lives in Brooklyn with his mother, Myra, and he travels all over the place to support his book, Train to Poughkeepsie, and that's Poughkeepsie is spelled P-O-K-I-P-S-E instead of the usual way. It's a great book. I think you've read part of it already?
Yes, I've read half of it. Very, very, my word for tonight is evocative. Very evocative. And he really catches an era, doesn't he?
It completely catches an era, and it is very evocative. And it's very much in the great American tradition in literature that we find from the end of the 1940s towards to the 60s and 70s. It's rebellious. It's rather, the story is rather nihilistic and tragic, but the author is quite the contrary. He's very, very positive. He has an extremely good outlook on things, considering how difficult his life is. A lot like Brett Gleason, he completely published his book through a Kickstarter campaign. And the very first edition was 911 issues, copies of the book, all signed and numbered by him. And he sold them out, actually, which is, it doesn't sound like a lot, 911 copies of a book, but try publishing your own book and see how many you'll sell. It's very difficult, probably. The book is it's exquisitely written, and is, as you say, evocative. It's marvelously written because he really knows the English language well, and he knows how to use it like an artist. I think it's very poetic, the book.
For me, it almost sounded biographical or autobiographical, but it can't be. He's too young to have been around in that period he's writing about. It felt really honest and really, really hardcore about, the drug world and the club world and the tragedy of it all.
Yes. Yes, well, he's 33, so this book, I think, takes place in he would be too young to have lived it in the 90s, but it's a book that it's very relevant still, extremely relevant in regard to the drug taking and the sex and the nihilism, because I think it's even worse today than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But the story, it's very appropriate for today. It's a great reflection of what's happening in the zeitgeist of today. It sold out its first edition, and now Remy is about to do a Kickstarter to produce the second edition, which he wants to do in an edition of 1984, another iconic number and date, Orwellian date. And he what's very admirable about him, and there's many things that I find admirable about Remy, but the thing that I find the most admirable is that he's boycotted Amazon. For an author, one would think that it may be a bit of a difficult thing to do in our world of today. And I'm glad you got it in time to read some of it, because I was hoping you would, because it would help a little. But didn't you find that the book had a great deal of the way that the actual story is one thing, but the way in which the story is told, it's very unusual ways of using words and their...
Yeah, another big test is when you disappear into it. I mean, I felt really hungover and quite drug-fucked, actually, after reading this.
Oh, dear me. Well, yeah, like, I don't even take drugs, and I felt the same way.
Well, me too. Yes.
I felt like I was on some kind of a trip, because do people even say that anymore? A trip? He's managed to make a very, very contemporary work of literature using a very old school mindset, which is, I think, a very difficult thing to do, and also I admire that.
Now, BB, you can't actually get it anymore. Were you saying it's actually sold out this edition, but you can contribute to the Kickstarter, or what's the go?
The Kickstarter is up. I think it started today. If it's not today, it's in the next day or two. And I have written an article about Remy Shamir, and it will be on the Foundation Tanagra this upcoming week. But the book, you can participate in the Kickstarter, and you would get a copy through the Kickstarter, I presume, and you will be able to know more about Remy Shamir on the social media, which is Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
So BB,
he's really...
Yeah. So, BB, the best way people can support him is contact him, his Kickstarter campaign, and also maybe go and see your local independent bookstores and see if you can get it ordered as well.
It's really worth it, and I'm sure you have. If people listen to your show, it's because of the great culture you provide from all over the world to your listeners, which is, you're not that usual yourself. You what you're doing is quite, in a way, unusual, because you have guests from all over the world talking about different types of culture, contemporary culture from all over the world. So I think your audience will be very receptive to reading this former Occupy Wall Street protester, this person who is strongly involved in equal rights and human rights, who has protested against all the injustices of the world, who fights against Amazon. If you have any sympathy with someone who is a kind of a rebel with a cause and likes good literature, this is the perfect book to read.
BB, thank you so much for talking to us once again. Can we talk to you another time when you have something else you'd like to be sharing with us?
Absolutely. I will have some other things to tell you very soon. So we'll keep in touch, and I'll